Hello, Dirty Girls, and welcome to Training Tuesday. Tonight we are doing part 2 of our leadership series. So week 1 was about values, and week 2 here we're talking about purpose. I'm going to approach purpose a little bit differently than maybe we've done in the past in this group, and probably a little bit differently than what you've done before. So I want you to stick with me on this one because I feel like this is a easier way for us to get really clear on purpose, mission, vision, goals, like all those things that when you sit down and think about your life and planning your life, like we always ask you to start with, what are your goals? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Sometimes that's not super clear. So we're going to approach this from a different direction tonight. And what got me thinking about this and approaching it this way is that one of my favorite podcasts is Julia Louis-Dreyfus's podcast, Wiser Than Me. And I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it here before. But if you haven't listened to Wiser Than Me, it's a podcast. Julia Louis-Dreyfus is known for being in Seinfeld and for being in Veep. She's very funny, but she's also just very direct and open and fresh, and it's very cool to listen to her. Highly recommend it. There's 3 seasons of Wiser Than Me. I have listened to all of them. So that was part of my inspiration for how we're going to go about this. And hello, ladies. I see we've got Christine, Terry, and Joyce so far tonight. Thank you for joining. So what I love about this podcast, Wiser Than Me, if you haven't listened to it, is Julia Louis-Dreyfus interviews women who are all, as she puts it, older and wiser than her. And the standard is they're all pretty much over the age of 70. They all have these amazing accomplishments. They're actors and they're actresses, actors. I don't know I guess we call them actors now. They're actors. They're musicians. They're activists. They're politicians, like from all walks of life. They are from all over the world. So she's not just interviewing Americans. She's interviewing people from all over the world. And in listening to the 3 seasons of this, I was really thinking about what makes these women so special. That here they are in their 70s, 80s. I think a couple of them were even 90 or over 90 when she talked to them. That they're at a place where we, who are, younger than them, right? I'm in my 50s, are looking to them for inspiration and stories of like, how did you get there? How did you have this most amazing life? How did you find yourself in this place with fame, with fortune, with impact? So I thought, well, what does make them special or different? What do they have in themselves that I don't? What got them where they're going? And like I said, I've listened to all 3 seasons. And what I realized as I'm listening to these women talk about their lives, because they get asked questions. How did you get here? How did you find yourself on this path? How did you respond? Like, why did this happen? I realized they're not actually smarter than me or you, right? It wasn't that these I mean, some of them are, I'm sure, much smarter than me, but it's not like in all 3 seasons, all these women, I thought, oh my God, they're so much smarter. No wonder they have it figured out. It's not that. So it's not that they're smarter than me. It wasn't that they had better connections or networks or opportunities. Some of them probably did, just like some of them were smarter than me, but definitely not all of them. It wasn't because it was just handed to them on a silver platter. Right? These were not the reasons why these women led the lives they led. There was something else. And as I was thinking about it, I thought, you know what? The something else, we all have it. We all have it. We just don't always recognize it or nurture it or tap into it the way we could. And that's where I got to, like, this is where their sense of purpose came from. This is where a clarity around their identity, who they are, and taking care of who they are really kind of steps up and steps in. Because for some of them, when you listen to them talk, the specifics of their purpose was not clear to them. There were some that would jump up and say, oh, I wanted to be a singer my entire life, or I always meant to write novels, right? I was on this path. They had a mission, right? They had a goal. I get that. But not all of them did. You'll hear in this podcast just as many stories of women who were like, I kind of fell into it, or, I did this thing and I thought I wanted to do this thing, and then I ended up finding another opportunity and going over here. So it wasn't that they all had to save the world from pollution, or I have to ensure fair treatment of minorities. Some of them have that, but not all of them. Some of it was, I just knew I needed to do my best in the moment I'm in with what I have. For some of them, it really was about, in this moment, with who I am, the talent I have, the skills I have, the stuff I know, the stuff I don't know, the best thing I could do in this moment was this choice, which led to the next choice, which led to the next choice, which took me on a path. But my purpose wasn't the end goal. My purpose was the being who I was meant to be. Your purpose doesn't have to be an end goal where you save the world. Your purpose can be about you being, but the importance of it is the who you are, right? The importance of you being the best at being you is what matters, because you being the best version of you impacts something. The best version of you is good at something. The best version of you means something to someone. And when you're good at something, and when you mean something to someone, you have a purpose. You have an impact. We don't always know the outcome of our purpose. We don't always hit the goal, the outcome we've defined, but it doesn't mean the purpose isn't there. One of the things that comes up when you listen to these interviews, and that probably some of you have experienced, is that you're on a path for a goal. You think it's your purpose, maybe it is, but it's a goal. And you realize, holy cow, there's like 7 different ways I could get to this goal. Which way do I choose? And we get lost, or we get a little bit stuck because we're not sure which path. We can also do the opposite. I have this goal, and there's this one path to get there, and I'm staying completely stuck on just this path. This is it. This is where I'm going. But sometimes if we're myopic like that, we miss the other opportunities that could come up, that could take us faster, better, or take us on a different journey, but could be even more interesting. So sometimes it's not a benefit to be focused on the outcome, but on the who you are in this process. Because somewhere in this, as we are the better versions of ourselves, what these women are doing in this podcast, Wiser Than Me, is they're already in their 80s, 90s, doing what we talk about in coaching, right? When I work with you guys, we talk about it on Training Tuesday too. I talk about your porch perspective. When you're 80 or 90 years old and you're sitting on your porch in your rocking chair and you got your comfy blanket and you're telling your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren about all your life adventures, what do you want those stories to be? What do you want that to look like? These women are in that stage of the porch perspective. They are looking back and they are telling Julia Louis-Dreyfus and her podcast audience, these are my stories. This is the impact I made. I had a hell of a ride, and this is where I made a difference. Or this is why it mattered. Now, all of this sounds very good, touchy-feely. It's very coachy-ish, right? These are coachy things that I talk about. I've talked about this process that we're going to talk about tonight before. I talk about purpose, right? I'll talk about having to know yourself and having a good relationship with yourself. This is a leadership skill, though. And that's the part that I want to make sure is clear tonight. This is a leadership skill, because when we talked about leadership a couple weeks ago, right, we talked about the definition. Leadership isn't the end result. It's the process. It's the series of verbs that creates the leadership. But those series of verbs, and the verbs that were in that leadership definition were what? It was, those verbs were influencing, right? Delegating, I'm trying to remember now there were several verbs, and right now off the top of my head I'm only thinking of those two. Delegating, influencing. They were great verbs. I should have written it down. But they were all about how we impact other people, how we bring other people along, how we encourage, how we inspire, how we motivate. They're coming back, right? Those were all the things that led to leadership. But leadership goes in a direction. It goes in a direction, which means the leader has what? The leader has confidence. The leader's making choices. The leader has a vision for the direction. Even if we don't know the exact outcome, even if we're not sure we're going to get there, we have a direction. So there's a vision. To lead, you need confidence, courage, and the vision. And the vision doesn't have to be super clear. It could be, I want to win $2 million next year. It could be, I need an Oscar. It could be, I want to travel when I retire, or I want to be financially comfortable and take my family on vacations. Or it could be, I want to live my life with a strong sense of inner peace and quiet. I want to be grounded in myself. But that's the vision. So the vision around this is about making choices of who you are. That's how we're a leader. When you are a leader with a strong sense of your place and your purpose, you are a role model. You are an inspiration. You are a motivator. For people who have goals similar to yours, you're a mentor. So this is how your sense of purpose and how you interpret that. It's a leadership skill. Because everywhere around you, our friends, our family, our co-workers, our neighbors, our children who watch you, they see you, they see what you do. That's the inspiration. That's the motivation. That's the impact that you have, whether you're aware of it or not. Now, wise women are tied into their sense of purpose because they're tied into this vision. And like I said, sometimes the vision they have is just more clarity about who they are in this life. What is their place? So many times we are just stumbling through the day. Does anybody feel like that? I felt like that all through 2024. All through 2024, I was just stumbling through the day to get to the end of the day, to get to the end of the week. At the weekend, it was to get ready for Monday, right? We're so distracted by the to-dos, everything we have to do. We have to pay the bills. We have to clean the house. We have to cook dinner. We have to get the kids ready for school. We have to shop for our mom. We have to go get the dog to the vet. We have to go to work. We have to eat. We have to remember to say something nice to our partner. We have to remember not to say what we really think at work. Right? We're so busy rushing and pushing and getting stuff done that we're not leading. We're just doing. We're just doing. Does that sound familiar to you guys? Because I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who felt like she stumbled her way through 2024 just crossing shit off the to-do list. Leading is different. Leading is intentional, it's thoughtful, and it has direction. So doing is getting the stuff done so that you can get to the next thing to do, right? You can start doing stuff towards your vision, right? That to-do list, the next thing you can get you closer to your vision. But if you don't have your vision, if you don't have right, that concept of who you are and where you're going in mind, then you can get lost with your head down in all your to-dos, and by the time you look up, you can find out that you're off track, or that those to-dos didn't matter anymore, that you passed that, you should have been on to something else. Getting in touch with your inner wise woman to define your sense of your purpose, your vision of who you are, is the reminder that you actually have someplace to go. There's actually a direction towards a person and a leader that you want to be. Thank you, Joyce, for validating me. I am not the only one who stumbled through 2024 and who's surrounded by to-do lists that are like miles long. And every time I think I've cracked a few things down, like less than 24 hours, there's like 10 more things I've got to add to the list. Now, your inner wise woman, my question for you is, do you feel like you know her? There is a woman inside of us that we all want to be. And I'm not talking about, no, I want to be just like Oprah. I want to be just like Barbie. Like, I'm not talking about that. I mean, literally, there is a part of us, a woman inside us, we know we can be. We know we have these traits, these skills, these characteristics, this personality. We know we can be all that. But there are things in life. There are things in our relationships. There are things at our job that keep us playing small, put us in a little box, and now we're not all her. Do you know who she is still? Do you know who you were? Who you were before you played a role? Who were you before you were a mother, a wife, a girlfriend, a daughter, right? Before, I mean, we were always daughters, I suppose, but before that role became really clear that to be a good daughter, you had to do certain things. Who were you before you were an employee, a good student, right? All these roles that we took on started to shape and form who we are and how we show up. But those are the outside influences. Internally, there was always an us. There is always a you that you were born with, who's looking at things a certain way, who wants things a certain way, who likes certain things, who likes things one way or another way, and maybe the rest of the family doesn't, and that's okay, but you were born with this. But she gets molded and squished right down into these boxes that are acceptable to the rest of the world. If you have lost touch with your inner wise woman, because she grew up and not so much of that changed. Not so much of who she is and what she wants has changed. You have, circumstances have, what people told you about yourself, all of that is still there. But who you are on the inside is still who you are. And there's an opportunity when you reconnect with your inner wise woman to let her show, to let her lead, and to know that she's not wrong. She's not wrong because she's perfect and she's just right for you, for who you are and who you want to be in this world that's spent, how old are we all collectively here? We're all somewhere, I think, in our 40s and 50s and 60s, right? That's the average age of this group is that generation. We've spent decades being told who we are and what we are, knowing there's this other woman inside of us who could be something different. If our first thought is if only our family, our schools, our work, society let us. But you know what? We're grown-ups now. And we're at an age where we have to let us be who we want to be. So I see your note, Christine, that you do know who she is, and that's why you're sad you screwed it up. See, you wrote that in the past tense, and it's not past tense. That's why I wanted to do this session tonight. Getting in touch with your wise woman, getting in touch with that part of you that is so very much you. It doesn't have to be a past tense thing. It can be our present and it can be our future, but it means we have to be willing to go there. Because here's what happens, and Christine, it sounds like you're experiencing some of this. If you don't stay connected with her, she will show up. I promise you she will show up at the most inconvenient times. She will show up at a point when you are at your most low and you're most frustrated, and you're going to see how big the gap is. She will show up when you're already 90 years old and sitting on your porch wondering, what did I do with my life, right? So we want to practice now. How do we get closer to that vision we have of our best selves so that we're not sitting on that porch telling our grandchildren stories and scratching our head internally thinking it could have been a better story if I had only made a different choice, done something else, showed up as me, right? Yes, exactly, Joyce. I think that's what happens to all of us. We lose that who we were originally, our original selves, because we're so busy putting all this energy externally, trying to be all the things to all the people. Because there's a lot of demands put on women, starting when we're young girls, of how we're supposed to show up and who we're supposed to be in order to be liked, in order to be successful, in order to be acceptable. And it's depending on how much of that pressure you had, we can squash her quite a bit. We can squash her quite a bit, and she can seem invisible. But here's the deal, and here's what you need to know. And yes, Christine, we will talk later. Here's what we need to know. You need to know about the wise woman. She's already there inside you. She's already there. She's already there. She's already fully baked. She's there. She is generous. She is kind. And she is clear-headed. We, especially all the energy we put externally to managing the world, we are not always clear-headed. And we are definitely not always generous and kind to ourselves. But she is. She very much wants to connect with you. She knows that she is buried and she is lost in there. Not everyone is going to like her. Not everyone in your environment, in your family, your friends, your work circles, are going to like your inner wise woman, your newly revitalized sense of who you are and your purpose. But you're going to like her. You're going to love her. You just got to be prepared that not everyone is going to be on that bandwagon. She requires attention and nurturing if she is going to show up in full color. She requires you to pay attention to her and to bring her out and bring her along with you. Now, that's what you need to know about her. Here's what you need to know about what she does. When you tap into this inner wise woman, who she is and what she's all about, she provides you with the vision of what you really want for yourself. What you wanted but you were afraid to acknowledge. What you wanted but you buried, so you forgot that you even wanted it. With the who you are, the strengths that you have, the skills that you have, the talents that you have, that were quashed, denied, ignored because by the people around you they were not considered important or not a skill or a strength that they needed. She models your values. We talked about values last week. Values are so important because values are how we make choices, right? And no, Joyce, you are not only half-baked. The external is half-baked. The internal is, it's there. It's all there. We go around half-baked, but we could tap into the fully baked. That was funny. Thank you. Your wise woman already models the values that are important to you. She models the values that you need to lean into if you're going to get to that vision. She can show you how you need to align. Your wise woman reminds you that you have every right to want what you want. You have every right to want it, to go after it, to do it, to be it. Your inner wise woman guides you towards your purpose and to the actions that will help you realize it. And she gives you clarity. She gives you inner strength that you might have found elusive because you were so busy giving your strength out to these other things and these other roles that people wanted you to be. Now, how do you find her? Finding your inner wise woman requires you to be brave, courageous, willing to be quiet. Finding your inner wise woman requires you to be willing to be quiet and to be willing to be open to whatever comes up when you're in the quiet. I know when I'm in avoidance mode, when I do not want to listen to what's going on with me, when I do not want to listen to my inner wise woman, when I do not want to deal with life, my clue that I am avoiding is headphones. My headphones are always in. There's always an audiobook or music or something, usually an audiobook of some kind or a podcast in my ears. Those are my tools for avoidance. Not music, actually. Music sometimes, but mostly not music. And you know why? Because music evokes emotions. And when I am avoiding, I want no part of emotions. I want distraction. And distraction is a really good podcast about somebody else's life and problems, right? Or a business podcast because I'm skilling up. Or ebooks because it's fantasy fiction. It's, and it's often somebody else's world and somebody else's challenges. So you may have some clues about what you do when you are avoiding the quiet. But to be in touch with your inner wise woman, you absolutely have to be quiet and listen. Now, there's about a 10-minute visualization that I share with my clients to walk them through this exercise. And what I recommend with my clients, especially if you're feeling very detached from the wise woman, is that you do this. It's a visualization. So you sit, you close your eyes, you get comfortable, and you listen. You listen to the prompts, and then you let what comes to your mind come to your mind. I recommend, if you've been out of touch with her, that you listen to it like once a week for a month or two. And then once you feel a little more comfortable with what you're visualizing, you do it every month. You do it every other month, but you stay in touch with this. And I'm going to just talk you through what the arc of the visualization is. And then if you want the actual audio recording, I'm happy to share it with you. But this is how you be quiet. You sit down, you quiet time, close your eyes, you sit, you lay down, whatever's comfortable for you, but you're fully relaxed. And then the story arc that you're going to follow for the visualization is that you're going to imagine yourself floating up in outer space, right? You're in your present time in your chair, then you're floating up into outer space, and you're looking down at the earth. And you're going to come back down to earth, but when you come back down to earth, it's 20 to 30 years in the future. Let's make ourselves really old. Let's say 30 years in the future. When you come back down to earth and it's 30 years in the future, I want you to look around. Where are you? Because you may not have landed where you left. So where are you? What does it look like? Are you at the beach? Are you in the mountains? Are you in a forest? Are you in a meadow? Are you in a city? Are you in a restaurant? Like, where are you? So come back down to earth. Where are you? Look around. When you look around, you're going to see a house. Where's the house? Is the house in the woods? Is it in a cul-de-sac? Is it in an apartment building? Like, but where is this home? You're going to describe the home mentally. You're going to observe the home. What does this look like? You're going to go knock on the door, and your wise woman is going to answer the door, and she's going to invite you in. And you and your wise woman are going to sit down and have a little chat, because you're going to ask her, how did I get here? What do I need to know to get where I am now to where you are 30 years in the future? What do I need to know? You're going to look around the house that she's living in. What does this look like? What's here? She's going to give you a little bit of food. She's going to give you a little bit of drink. You're going to chat a little more. You're going to get up to leave. When you get up to leave, she's going to hand you a gift. You're going to go out the door. You're going to float your way back up to space. You're going to float your way back down to the present moment. And when you come out of the visualization, you're going to pick up a paper and pen, or you're going to jump on your laptop or your iPad or whatever you write with, and you're going to start describing everything you saw in that visualization. What did she look like? What was she wearing? How did she move? What did the house look like? What was in it? What did she feed you? What did you drink? Pay attention to the details, right? Pay attention to the details. What did she tell you about how she got where she is? What do you think the values were that got her there? Did she share that directly, or did you look around and say, based on what I see here, here are things she must have made important? Was there something in the vision that you can acknowledge that maybe you didn't admit to yourself before, or you'd never seen before, and now you've got to think about, wow, is that really a part of my future? Why would I want that as part of my future? Why is that there? What was the gift? Does the gift have meaning or no? When you're looking at that future vision, what could you start doing today to move yourself towards where she is? Is it something in your attitude and your energy? Is it something in the decisions you're making about your job or your money or your house or your relationships? Is there some planning you need to do to start making those steps to get where she is? Great question. What will you stop doing? What do you need to stop doing in order to open yourself up to get where she is? The first time you do this, especially if you're not fully comfortable, right? If this is not a practice and you're not fully comfortable maybe with who this wise woman is, you may not be able to answer all the questions. It may not be super clear. So the practice of going in and doing this multiple times, right? Do it once a week over the course of a month, right? Do it 4 or 5 times in a row, is to, one, practice visualization, because not everybody's comfortable with that, but also get more familiar with this image in your head. She's in there. We often haven't allowed ourselves to get to know her and to let it roam free because we've always been told, not appropriate, don't do that, you can't do that, that's not possible for you. That's not what this space is for. This space is to say everything's possible. I just want to know what it is I want. I just need to know who it is I am. That's what we're going for here. When you build the relationship with her, you build an increase. You increase your self-awareness. When you increase your self-awareness, you increase the importance of your relationship with yourself. When you have a strong sense of self, you build your confidence, you build your courage, and with confidence and courage and that vision, you start to lead. You lead yourself, you lead your family, you lead your friends, your community. Anybody who comes into your orbit now is feeling the impact of how you are showing up. Right? You should be checking in with this wise woman vision every now and then, even if you're comfortable with her. Every other month or so, once a quarter, twice a year, but you should be checking in to make sure, are you still on track? Is this still who I'm aiming for? Is this still the direction I'm going? Who were you before? You were a mother, an employee, a BFF, right? Who were you before when you were just you? And what does she want out of this life? When you can answer those questions, you have purpose right there. When you know what you're good at, when you know what's important to you, those are the values then that drive your decisions. Remember, we talked about values last week. You know the values, you know yourself. That gives you direction. And like I said, purpose, guys, let's reframe purpose. Purpose doesn't mean I have to make sure that we have clean air in the world. I have to make sure that there's available drinking water in third world countries. I have to make sure that your purpose isn't just to raise your kids. Your purpose isn't just to do your job. Your purpose is to be. But it's to be the best version of you, which are going to lead to so many other opportunities to exhibit who you are and everything you can do in full color. Okay, so that's how I want you to think about purpose. I don't want you to think about it as there's a goal. I have to solve a problem, there's a goal. My purpose is to become the next president of the United States. Awesome if that's your goal, but your purpose is going to be wrapped around, well, what kind of president are you going to be? Who is that's going to show up in the Oval Office? And what's she going to think? And what's she going to do? And what are her values? Your purpose is to be the best president you can be. It's not to be president. That's just the role. Your purpose is to be the best president you could be. What's she all about? Because your version of being president, or in our case, well, you could still be president. I'm not saying you're not. But what I'm saying is, more locally in our case, being CEO of your life, being in charge of your life and your career, your purpose is tied very much into who you are. Your version of President of the United States is different than somebody else's. Christine's version of how she would lead as president is going to be different than how Joyce is going to lead, is going to be different than how Jackie's going to lead, or Terry, or anyone else. So that's the thing to keep in mind. That's what I mean about purpose. Purpose is tied to the how we do it and the who we are when we do it. It's not the goal itself. The end result, the outcome is the goal, right? Which is cool. Have goals, absolutely. But your sense of purpose, your sense of drive is tied to the why behind. Why would being president be important to you? What's your why behind that? That's your purpose. The why behind it is because I care about people. I'm a really good nurturer. Or the why behind it is my talent is in analysis and numbers and money. That's my skill set and my talent. And my drive behind that is I want to help more women get rich. Therefore, I'm on this vision and this path to find ways to use that to be my best self in order to help others. It doesn't have to be helping others. My purpose could be, I just want to be the best damn writer I can be. And I'm doing that for me, but that's my purpose. We're not locked in. So, if you would like the audio, it's just an audio file of the Wise Woman visualization. Drop the phrase Wise Woman in the comments, and I'm happy to share that audio file with you. Again, I recommend that you listen to it on a regular basis if this concept is newer to you or you're just not comfortable like with meditation and visualization. It's going to feel weird if it's new to you. It's going to feel a little bit goofy. When you write things down, you're going to think this is silly. I could never do that. I could never be that. That is negative thinking and it's not allowed. So you're going to think that, and okay, think it, and then push it aside and do the visualization again, because every time you do it, you're going to get more details, more clarity, more awareness around what's actually going on in here, but most importantly in here. Fabulous. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me on Training Tuesday. I know this was a little bit of a different way of approaching something like purpose, which is often kind of very business oriented, and like I said, it's usually very goal oriented, but I think we've been approaching it all wrong. And I think we need to approach it much more in the alignment of the who we are and why things are important to us, and not in what it is and the outcome. Have a fabulous night. For those of you who are dropping Wise Women, I will be sharing the audio file with you, so stay tuned for that. And thank you for joining. Have a fabulous rest of your Tuesday.